All right, and we should be live. I hope this is where the podcast starts, as this is the very first time we're starting uh, using this technology. But welcome, everybody, to the first episode of XP Hunters. I'm one of your hosts, Hey Jay, and joining me for the first time on this channel, Blue, aka the instructor. How are you, Blue?
I'm good. Yeah, it's so funny. Just now when you introduced me, I waved like someone can see me, but
Well, we saw your mouth flap, so I don't know if that was a result of you waving.
oh, maybe it was probably me laughing at myself for waving.
Well, we see your wave. Oh, you can see me. I forget. You can see
I
me.
can't.
But
Yeah, I can see you.
I
Yeah,
cannot
that's
see your physical self.
It's funny. We have a very third fleet podcast kind of thing going on here. Like Gaijin, he's a Palico and I'm instructor. Like we're both like Monster Hunter things.
Well, greatness inspires others, aka we totally ripped off the Third Fleet podcast style because it's so good.
It is. If it ain't broke, there you go.
Yeah, I tried to make it a little different, so I put like the live person on the right, and also we have Twitch handles up above us, which is different.
So yeah, there you go. See, there you go.
So there's a little bit of difference. But for those who might be wondering, I don't know, should we start with an intro of the podcast or an intro of you? I think you might be the good place.
I guess that makes sense because for those of you who know me, you guys should know Jay. I hope you are. You're here.
They're on my channel. I hope so. Yes.
But as for me, my name is Blue Water EZP, but everyone just calls me Blue. I also am a Twitch streamer. You guys can find me at, as you can see above, Blue Water EZP. And I'm also a variety streamer. I play things very similar to Jay, such as Dark Souls and Monster Hunter, things of that variety. But we have a lot of cross audience. And matter of fact, I happen to be one of Jay's mods. I still am one of Jay's mods.
So
and I love helping out Jay. He's a fantastic guy. And but yeah, if anyone wants to come over, see what I'm up to, I'll do all kinds of stuff. Plus, if you come see me live, I'll put a link in the Discord. We have our own chats and everything over there. You can get the most up-to-date things of what I'm up to there. Like right now, I've been playing Splatoon during this weekend because I'm trying to catch up to Splatoon 3. Because I do like lore stuff. I also like to fully kind of dive into a game. And Splatoon oddly has lore. So that's why I was like, well, hold on now. Maybe I do want to check out Splatoon. And I've slowly been enjoying it and getting into it.
It is pretty weak lore in my opinion. But anyway, we're not going to get into that right now.
That's for another day.
The big topic of today is going to be, is Dark Souls and Elden Ring and all the Soulsborne easy? That's going to be our big topic that we're going to get to later. But a few more intros. I just want to give some context for anyone who actually reads like a lot of comments on the channel. Because the way I got to know you, Blue, at first was you would comment on every single Monster Hunter. Actually, I think every single video, but more so,
yes.
I recall it from my first Monster Hunter World videos. You would always comment with the longest comment. Like there was a huge paragraph to look forward to on each journal that I posted. And I think you posted as instructor, or maybe you signed off as instructor.
That is, yes. Instructor is a Monster Hunter character, and nowadays we have things like Yusushi is like the instructor, for example. But the classic Monster Hunter instructors, they look just like me. Hi. And but my thing is, there's a show there's a game that's actually a From Software game. How funny! Where it's like a little Palico Village thing. It's on the PSP. And there's a character named Instructor, and they even have an animated show that you can go watch on Catcom's YouTube channel. You can watch all the episodes.
What?
And yes, and it's adorable and it's hilarious. It's funny, and since you know Monster Hunter, you'll get the jokes now, and because there's a lot of jokes. And the outro is, of course, it translates to "Enjoy the hunting life." Gee, and that's what he says, and that is what I say. That's my outro. That's where it comes from.
Oh, I did not know that. 2 years of reading her comments, and I'm learning now. So that was my first impression of Blue. Long-winded comments on every journal with a lot of advice and a lot of helpful tips for my journeys. Blue eventually came over to the Twitch streams. I mean, you were probably there from the beginning, but
I was.
There was a lot of people in the chat, so you didn't stand out at that time.
Well, I'll interrupt here for a second. Is that the thing is, I play TTRPG. I'm a DM, all that stuff, and my games were on Thursdays, so I always missed you live. There were times literally you would stop being live for like a minute, and I would just watch it. I would end up watching your stream after Riot was over. But then I finally got to start catching you live every so often. And funny enough, where I consistently caught you live because of our game sessions on those Thursdays were no more, was right around Elatreon. Perfect timing.
The peak of the
Yes,
story
like
arc.
the best. I actually participated in the challenge you did where you had to wear your gear and
The
to see if your gear
Elatreon?
was good enough. I actually had all the same decos and everything perfectly to make your set. So when I did it, I was like, there you go. I was so happy I did it, and it was pretty sweet. So I was like, oh, I gotta submit this. I can't believe I did it like on my second try. And
Wow.
yeah, well the thing is, okay, so I did it like at lunch. I just did a quick thing to be like, oh man, I haven't used the Switch Axe in like a year. Can I even do this? And I was like, oh yeah, I can do it. Then I got home. I was feeling bad all day. I ended up with like the flu or fever or something. I had like 100-degree fever,
Damn.
and I did it in that one shot right there. Submitted it, typed it, sent it to Haul, your editor,
Hmm.
and that was our first contacts. And I
Oh,
sent it to him, and boom, it's on there. And now I'm in the video. I'm blue. You'll see I'm one of the people.
very cool. So yeah, eventually you got noticed by me, and you became
Notice
more.
me, senpai.
Oh, I noticed you. I even modded you. So Blue has
Yeah.
been such a helpful member of the community. He's been modded, and now he streams. He streams pretty much when I don't stream, and
Mhm,
we are playing similar games where
mhm.
Monster Hunter. And I think you discovered the Dark Souls like franchise around the same time I did, right?
Right. So, it's really interesting. And by the way, it's funny you mentioned schedules. We have perfect rotating schedules. Like on Monday, you're Tuesday. On Wednesday, you're Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday is like our flex days.
Hmm.
So we have streaming covered every day a week between two of us. But as for Dark Souls, so I actually have some familiarity with Dark Souls back when it came out. There was a person who I worked with, and he loved Dark Souls, and I'm like, yeah, I gotta check out this franchise, right? So I tried to check it out, and funny enough, that person, by the way, happened. Don't know how he found me, but he found me on Twitch, and I knew who
Oh,
he is. And then when he found me, he goes, "Hey, we used to work together and stuff." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I started talking. I was like, "Guys, this is the guy I'm always talking about, who one who loved Dark Souls." And around that time, Dark Souls 2 had come out, and I didn't like Dark Souls. I did not like it.
just
Who's
like
that
me.
sound like?
Just like
Yeah,
me.
just like you. And so I wrote off Dark Souls for 10 years. I just kind of dunked on the franchise constantly. I didn't really see the appeal. But then like Sekiro came out and I really enjoyed it. And then Elden Ring came out and I actually got COVID when I got it. So for 2 weeks, that's all I did was play Elden Ring. Got all the achievements and I really liked it. I was thinking like, am I wrong? Like, wait, are these games good because they're new? But Jay played it. He didn't like it. It's just I don't know. So I went back and I
I didn't
played
like
it.
the first one, to be fair.
Right. To be
Yeah.
fair, to be correct. So the thing is, so I went back and I played Dark Souls 1 remaster
Hmm.
on stream, and I will say that one of my favorite games is Metroid 3, Super Metroid. I will put that up there with that game. I think Dark Souls 1
What?
is so good. Yes, and by the way, that's a tall order. To dare say that it's up there. It's funny, like it's not my top 10, but it's definitely my top 20
Now,
games.
hold up.
But still,
You
okay.
revisited Dark Souls after playing Elden Ring, though, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
you got the Elden Ring experience, and that because when
Hmm.
I did Dark Souls, that
No, you
was
were
I was starting like that was my introduction to that type of game, and I hated it.
correct.
But and
Yes, you did.
it's not that I hated it; I just didn't like it that much. But
The problem,
now that I've tried Elden Ring, I kind of want to go back.
yeah, because it's like, by the way, be happy you played Elden Ring because if you ever go back to like Dark Souls 2, all that Elden Ring experience, because
Yeah.
like that team along with Miyazaki, like, so think of it like Dark Souls 1 and 3 team and the Dark Souls 2 team got together, and that's kind of how Elden Ring is.
Okay.
There's so many things that are in Elden Ring that's actually in Dark Souls 2. And there's some things in Dark Souls 2. People hate Dark Souls 2. Now, I'm playing Dark Souls 2 right now. And the thing is, I'm more than halfway through it right now. And there's a lot actually to love about Dark Souls 2. People love dunking on it.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of good things. Still some bad things, but a lot of good things.
Have you
And
played?
since you play Elden Ring, I think you'll like it.
Have you gotten around to Dark Souls 3 yet? Because that's the one that
I have not.
I started liking. Like I'm
Okay.
like, okay,
No.
things are
So the
good.
thing is, it's funny. I'm actually one of the people who messaged you and said, "Try Dark Souls 3. It's the most because Elden Ring wasn't out.
Right.
Is the most fluent one, like the most streamlined, it's the best introduction to try to get into a From Software game, a Souls game. Try that one. If you don't like that one, this franchise isn't for you. Move on. You're fine. Um, but for me, like I played Dark Souls 3, and it's actually of all the Dark Souls, that's the one I kind of remember the most. And like heck, I beat what's his name? The Nameless King on my first try.
What?
First try.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
What were you using as your weapon?
I don't remember. That's the sad thing.
But wait, I should ask, what level were you? And that's actually going to be very critical. The great question.
Yes, we're going to touch on all that later. But I will tell you right now, it's not like now. I was not over leveled. I was on par. I was shooting through. I missed a lot of Dark Souls 3, the same way I missed a lot of Dark Souls 1, where there were things in Dark Souls 1 that streams like, hey, go over there. I'm like, okay, and they show me new things, like something you missed as well, and I was blown away. There's one area that you never went to that I literally on screen, like I put my hands in my face and I hear me exhale because I said, guys, this is amazing. Like this stuff is so good.
That's the painting,
and
isn't it?
And no, it wasn't I did the painting. I did like the painting, but it was another thing that's in Blighttown. It's in the poison area. And chat tried to get you to go see it, but you were like, see, that's the problem. At that time, you still were working out who were the good ones, who were the bad ones.
There were a lot of trolls in the early days.
Yeah, and too many people lost your trust. So when they were like, "Oh, go do your thing," you're like, "Nah, I'm good," and you just kept going, and you missed it. So, and that's their fault. So,
yeah. Now I know it more. I have a more consistent audience, so I know who are the trustworthy ones and who are the regular trolls. But when the channel blew up because of Monster Hunter, I it's a lot of new faces. I didn't know who was who. But this kind of leads us to the purpose of this podcast and what the name is for, because we called it XP Hunters, which stands for experience. Well, does it stand for experience or experience points hunters? I think it stands for experience hunters, right?
Okay. So when we were trying to come up with all the different names, and we had a lot of different names we were going through, and that was the cool thing. I got to share them with chat and stuff like that, and get some feedback. But one of the ones you came up with was XP Hunters, and it was because we're both hunters, and we're both looking to experience new games and new experiences in gaming as well, whether it be within our own franchises, being Soulsborne and hunting type franchises, or things beyond. Like recently, you've been tapping the RPGs and such. But that's what it's about.
It's like
I've been doing Splatoon
for experience.
Yeah, I've been in the shooter exactly, and but exactly that's what it's about. Once we got into the idea of it's about for hunters looking for experiences, XP Hunters, and we're like, that's us.
It's also the name of my company is XP Gaming.
Yeah.
So I was actually hesitant. I'm like, I can't name my podcast like this podcast.
Yeah,
the same as my company.
I thought that was so funny because I was like, oh man, I really like XP Hunters, but I think I only like it because of XP Gaming, but I'm not sure. But once we talked about it, I was like, no, that's the winner. That's the one.
It's short, it's succinct, it really conveys, this podcast is about two gamers, aka hunters, getting together and talking about their experience of gaming. As you have we both have a storied history in gaming, and we've both missed out on some huge IPs and franchises. And now we're seeking out, like, are these overhyped? What's to love about the franchises we missed?
Yeah, that's exactly what got me back into playing the Dark Souls franchise. Is that I was working on a video series, which I still am. It's a work in process. That's why I'm playing them. And the video won't come out for like another year because I gotta play all the games. It's called Am I Wrong? And it's about are From Software games actually good? Like is Dark Souls games, Soulsborne franchise, like is it actually fun? Is it any good? And in my opinion, it's not. But I'll tell you right now, spoiler alert, it has been shifting to where I'm like, I think I'm wrong. And that's the thing. I'm a person who likes to be wrong. Well, and that's the point. Am I wrong? It's the idea of I present a thing that I want to love that I don't. I give you some objective and subjective reasons, and then ideas for all of us to come together and help me be wrong. I want to be wrong.
And I've learned being wrong is great, especially when it comes to Monster Hunter. I was so wrong. Look what that's unlocked.
Right.
What's also interesting is the polarity difference between our experiences. We've both gone back to the Soulsborne games after writing them off, and I've played them through a certain way, which is very much I want to get to the next boss. I want to get to the next area. This area is too hard.
Mhm.
I'm going to run through it. And your way of playing a game is very much, I'm just going to grind. I'm going to relax and grind and just get your level up. And then you just plow through things. So we have this very different approach of you will over prepare and I will always be under prepared in my approaches to games.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Because for me, it's something everyone gets on you about. Is how they're like, Jay doesn't explore, blah blah blah, and later you'd be like, hey, look, I'm exploring. I'm like, yeah, see,
I explore when I'm encouraged to. Dark Souls is like, oh, you want to explore here? Here is death. Go away.
Yeah, here's pain. This is what you get for looking. You won't believe how many deaths I have, especially Dark Souls 2, probably like 30 or 40, of me just jumping into a hole because be like, let's see what's down here. Nothing.
Death.
But the thing is, yeah, I explore a lot, and because of that, I end up with a lot of extra experience. But I myself do I do a thing. I grind. I do. And the thing is, and I like to level up, especially when I'm doing my streams, because that way I can progress. I want to move forward via streams. But like when I'm offline, because I'll tell you this, is that after I beat Dark Souls 1, I loved it so much that I went and beat it again offline, brand new save file. But I did like you. I only went straight. So the thing is, but the only thing I had in my arsenal this time though is knowledge. So, and I will say that I did probably even better than I did even with all the levels and such, just because of one, knowledge, gamer skill, not the pressure of being on stream, stuff like that. Because we'll talk about streaming, what it's like to be a streamer in a bit, because there's a lot to juggle for all those who don't know.
There is, and but, I'm also. I don't know if you want to shift to the whole maybe why I'm a bit driving the podcast. I don't know. I'm in my natural element here, so I'm sorry if I'm like saying, okay, next topic.
No, go ahead. We gotta move along. We got things to talk about.
Yeah, the fact that this isn't my first podcast, I haven't been on a podcast, and I haven't run a podcast in, I think, over a year and a half since my last one ended. I used to run a podcast for 5 years called the Class vs. Crass podcast. That started on a YouTube channel called Nintendo Enthusiasts, which is, I think it is now, that whole thing shut down. But it was a Nintendo community, and the podcast was very much focused on Nintendo content. And once I was done there, I moved that podcast to my channel, and then I moved it to its own channel, Class vs. Crass. And after 5 years, I was just, a lot of things change in life, and I didn't feel... I just felt things were too different for that podcast. And anyways, it came to an end. Since it ended though, I've missed podcasting. I really enjoy talking and about gaming experiences and gaming things. And, just between you and I, when we were hopping on a call to talk about what this might look like, it'd be hard to stop talking, and we're like, oh, we got to save some of this to record it. And even like when I was on the Third Fleet podcast, I'm like, oh, this feels so good. And I talked with Rurikon because I was on two. I was on the Third Fleet podcast with Ruri and Gaijin, and that was fun. We spoke for 3 hours, and then I went back for a chat with Rurikon about my Dark Souls experience. And that was great too.
Yes, yeah, because you're after your tweet. I remember that. Yeah.
And I've been kind of like waiting. I'm like, are they going to invite me again? And like after I played 3U, I was like nudging them. I'm like, guys, can we talk about 3U now? And this is when Gaijin Hunter was really deep into Final Fantasy 14. I mean, he still is. And Ruri's like, man, I'd love to have you back, but Gaijin has disappeared. Like it's so hard to get him because he's deep in Final Fantasy 14. So I've stopped bugging them, but if they are listening to this, if they hear this, I would love to talk to them about my Third Fleet experience because that's where they started the Monster Hunter, their Monster Hunter journey. So
yeah, I know they're going to hear this one, and also with Gaijin playing Final Fantasy 14, it's I'm glad he really enjoys it. I enjoy it too, but he's gained that great experience where he's sharing it with his daughter, so he's kind of like doing it twice. That's another reason why he's so gone. Yeah. So because he's doing it twice.
That is like I can't imagine how amazing that must be. You're not just playing a game and a game like an MMO that has a rich story and a rich world, but you're sharing that. Like it's a family experience, right? You're sharing that with your child. So a little envious of him. I think like that's an experience that's very unique, and it's great that he has that opportunity. And I don't blame him. Like that, all of that compiled is probably why he's so far gone because
And
it's
he is a huge, I know you are too, like he's a big Final Fantasy fan. And so
mhm.
for him to put off FF14 for so long, Rurikon bothering him, and him doing it, I mean, his daughter's name is Yuna. He named it after Yuna from Final Fantasy X.
Yep.
And the thing is, and now for her to be experience a Final Fantasy of her own and to
Yeah.
get the new loves and grows and everything that comes with that.
Mhm.
That's something to share. That's great. That's like with my son. He's experiencing Monster Hunter,
Yeah.
and he's loving the monsters. So that he's playing stories too. He beat he did that. Now he's doing Monster Hunter Rise. We're now in Sunbreak, and he's finding all the monsters and stuff that he loves. And he's a hammer bro. And I love
Oh.
sharing that with him. Yeah.
Yeah, with my son, we haven't found an overlap yet too much. Our go-to are the Lego games.
Mm,
Those are the games like we
so
we
good.
we started to go after them and say, okay, we're gonna 100% them, but we only kind of play them when we're together. So we 100%ed the Lego Marvels, the Marvel one, the first one, which is I think is the best one. It's the one where you can like roam around New York.
Yeah.
And right now we're actually trying to finish the Skywalker saga, Lego Star Wars. We finished 100% at the galaxy. Now we have to do all the challenges and the levels and finish off the levels. He's very much into like Minecraft, first person shooters, and I'm into everything except those. So there's not a lot of overlap yet. And he watches me play like Monster Hunter and Elden Ring. He's like, are those games I can play? And I was like, yeah, Monster Hunter you can try. He tried Rise for the first maybe 15, 20 minutes, and I could see the struggle. I'm like, okay, it's not clicking for him yet. I think I would have to guide him more. And
Yes.
then
Yeah. He needs
Elden,
you to be his instructor. Be his instructor.
when the time is right, yes.
I believe
I'm
in you.
watching him from afar, like creepy Obi-Wan. Um, and when it comes to Elden Ring, I kind of like, it's a bit of a violent game. You probably shouldn't. But and
Oh,
I'm like, oh, it's a hard game, but he keeps asking questions. And I found out he watches pretty violent anime, like Demon Slayer. So now I'm at the point
oh
I'm
yeah.
like, well, if you watch that, you can handle all this other stuff.
Yeah,
So
like if he's seen like Game of Thrones, he's ready for anything.
he has not watched Game of Thrones.
Okay,
That's pretty yeah,
that's the peak. There you go. I'm
yes.
just saying when he hits that, that's when you know like okay, there's nothing. But a lot of animes and such, yeah, even growing up. Heck, I remember being probably his age because I know how old your son is. But the thing is, and watching things like Ninja Scroll, if you remember that, that
Yeah,
has
that was
yeah, see,
traumatic as a teen
right?
for me.
So, so that's what I'm saying. Like if once you experience that, yeah, here's your Elden Ring. Go have fun.
Yeah. And what I like is he's changed in his gaming attitude recently. And I'd say the
Mhm.
last year, he's 14, by the way. And he's seeking challenges now. So at a younger age, if something would be too hard, he'd walk away from it. He'd lose interest. But something shifted in his mindset in the last year, maybe year and a half, where he is seeking the challenges. He actually 100% in Mario Odyssey, something I have yet to do.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's because he kept at it and he pushed himself. And I kind of encouraged him with this mentality of like, don't give up, just learn from failing, get better.
Mhm.
And then so he 100%ed that. He returned to Breath of the Wild, which was a game he used to find too hard, and he like destroyed everything in that game and has just gotten so good at it. He's trying to figure out how to do trick shots and all this stuff. So he's really like, I think at an age or at a mindset of seeking out challenge. He loves Pokemon, so he is actually doing Nuzlocke now.
Oh,
Uh,
very good. That's fine. I'm
which
going to talk about Nuzlocke in a little bit.
yeah, so we'll see how that goes because
Yeah.
I am not into
Well,
Pokemon games anymore at
I
all.
love Nuzlocke, but we're going to talk about that later in this podcast.
All right,
So,
so that's quite a bit of intro. Is this your first podcast, by the way, or have you done
okay,
podcasts
that's
before?
that's the funny thing. Okay, I will say this is my first podcast, yes.
Mhm.
But my buddy Dan, for the longest time, he always wanted us to do a podcast for years, years. And the thing is, and I said, no, man, who wants to hear us talk? And he's like, yeah, but you're like in the industry, like you're behind the scenes, you know things before people get to know. I'm like, yeah. So the thing is, I'm like you rub shoulders with a lot of people. No, I said, eh. But then it was so funny because like, yeah, I always have my finger on the hot topic and now here I am doing a podcast, and you've seen from my comments and your videos, yeah, I can go on for a long time, and from the chats we've had offline, I mean like off stream, that we can talk forever.
Mhm.
So this is where I want to be. This is a perfect
You're a
setting.
natural podcaster.
I'm
Born
natural,
to
just chatterbox.
podcast. Got to get you a shirt. Born to podcast.
Born to podcast. I like that actually. That needs to be a shirt.
Yeah. Do you want to just dive into the topic, or did you want to cover other?
Or let's one or two things. So
Sure.
I mentioned what's called like us streaming and such, and because now that's the thing I do, and that's been kind of like a struggle. It's growing pains of anything you do that's new.
Mhm.
And it's funny watching you. You're a big inspiration to me finally being like, I'm
Wow,
gonna go
thank you.
stream. I'm gonna do it. So
I didn't know that.
I've been wanting to do it for a long time, and I just one thing that's holding me back was my computer. I got a very brand new computer. I love it. And watching like your style and such, I'm like, see, Jay's got my style. He does it like how I would do it. So I'm thinking like that shows that I can do it. The thing is that I'm always like, oh, would anybody even want to watch or anything like that?
Yeah.
But you were proof that I could. So I did, and
What is the style, sorry, that you're referring to?
the style thing is, well, first of all, like you said, keep it classy. Is that like I'm a PG-13 kind of guy. I'm
Mhm.
like although we make jokes that we're classy crew after dark. We're the Adult Swim version of the classy crew.
So that's what
But
goes on
we
at your channel?
so well, there's sometimes some topics I'm like I don't think we can talk about this if Jay was live.
Okay.
but but again, that'll be for another time. But the thing is, but for the most part, it's the thing of I always believe in approaching everything a very PG-13 type of thing. Like you might, say like shit or something like that on occasion, sure, but for the most part, you watch other streamers and such, and like they'll drop f bombs nonstop. I don't have a problem with language, but at the same time, when
Yeah.
you have more of a family friendly type of stream where you're willing to imagine like I'm playing Splatoon, and I have some viewers who've come in recently that are like pretty young. They're like 11, 12, stuff like that,
Mhm.
and it's the thing of I want to be able to have their mom walk in and not be like, "What are you watching?" So, right.
Yeah.
But with that, there's also like the struggle of scheduling. Like I didn't know like how I should do it, but like you have the right way of scheduling. Like you have your days, and I like that, and that works out because
Mhm.
I have my days, and because I'm like I just do it spontaneously, and I also thought who wants to watch me like play video games? Like I'm not exciting, right? But I've done a lot of challenges. I've done a lot of
Yeah.
things. Like my very first stream podcast stuff was I played Monster Hunter World with no HUD. I had no HUD of any sort. I went through the whole thing, and it was a blast. I had fun mostly because of chat. Because like I was only going to go up to the credits of World. I was just going to be Xeno'jiva and move on. But they were like, go further, go further. I'm like, oh, okay. So we kept going, and then I went through Iceborne, and then I was like, okay, like I hit the credits of Iceborne. That will be the stop, right? And we kept going, and then
Oh.
I even I beat Altreon, I beat Fatalis, and I beat like Arctemper Volcana on my first try, which I didn't think was gonna be possible. I was just like, oh, we'll just check it out, whatever. I
That
start
is
going.
wild.
I even had a person be like stuff. I was like, "Oh, your Discord link's not working. Here, hold on." And I started like messaging stuff in the Discord. I mean, on the chat for the Discord, and that's a very time sensitive fight. As I'm
Yeah.
going, kind of like, "Wait a minute, I'm on time." Actually, guys, I might be able to do this. And I just kept going, and I did it. I was blown away, and I was just like, "Well, there you go." So but it was really fun. I love that challenge because also I changed my weapon every like week and stuff like that. So it was always a
Hmm.
different weapon, different build. I played every weapon, and then recently I also did a thing called the Demo Gear Challenge, which is I use the same gear that's from the demo, but for the whole game. And every hunt, I use a different weapon. So that's been a fun challenge. And people can dictate what weapon I use. They use their their channel points. They go
Hmm.
use this weapon. I'm like, oh okay, and it's just been fun. And honestly, chat makes it so much better. But I mean, they make it more challenging at times because you have to. There's all that juggling. You know what I'm talking about? Like you have to re-chat while focusing on what you're doing, while
Yes.
concentrating on things, and you gotta keep that energy levels up and be talking and that
I
reading and interacting. And then there's technical difficulties, and well,
I
do know a
found
lot of that.
I found my personal limit, like my where my brain overloads. I can
Mhm.
read and play, but if I have to listen to someone, and I found this out when Rurikon came on stream and played with me, I piped him
Mhm.
into my ear, and so he was talking to me. I had to read chat, and I had to play. I was I was not reading properly. I was missing half the stuff he was telling me, and I was playing like garbage. It was so I'm like, okay, that's my threshold. I can do two things, no more, because
Yeah, and
things just break apart.
I remember giving you a comment about how good you are at reading chat, responding properly, and playing your games. It's honestly it's an art. I like huge props.
I think
Um,
it does take practice. Like I don't know if I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's why I wasn't so good, or maybe I'm so like average at Monster. I don't know. Because when I do focus like on a really hard challenge, I become much more quiet with chat. Like I miss a lot of stuff in chat. So it's definitely an art. I think there are better people that are better out there. I do want to address
Mm,
how you got started and the challenges and what you saw, because I used to think the very same thing of you. Of nobody's gonna want to watch me play games, and I always looked at other streamers. I'm like, I'm not exciting. I'm not I'm not some young guy in my early 20s who's even emotionally. I'm not someone who emotes in a large spectrum. Like when
right.
I think of streamers, it's people that can cry, the people that can like scream because they get excited and they get shaky and they jump it. And I'm like, I have never felt so much emotion that I need to express it that way. Like, yeah, I have cried at games. I've never
Oh
done it on
yeah,
stream,
absolutely.
but I've never been at like, some people who react and they jump out and like the chair goes flying and stuff. I've never felt that excited about things to physically express it that way. So
Mm,
I've always had those doubts, and I started streaming in 2020, which, and maybe we're going a little bit too off course here, but
go ahead.
just before
We're
the
on.
pandemic, a few months before the pandemic hit, I had made the decision to quit my job and to start my own company and build this thing I had. And it wasn't XP Gaming at the time, but it's what would become XP Gaming. And I had invested a lot of money, taken a lot of risk to build this thing. And then the pandemic hit and it shut everything down. I was looking to build events. And so I found myself with no work. Like you couldn't do events. I had no income coming in. Here in
Oh,
Canada, we
hey,
actually had,
hold on.
yeah.
I think I lost sound on you.
Oh, can you still hear me?
There we go. You're back. So
Okay.
you can do events.
I could not do events. So I had no income. I had no plans. Like this was the pandemic hit so suddenly. I had no way to like pivot, find other work or anything. So here in Canada, they launched like a government support for those who were out of like who just suddenly had no work, and that was like $2,000 a month that the government was just paying until we figured things out. So I was on that, and I did not know what to do with my life. I was like so depressed, and I had no reason to wake up. I'm like, oh my god, I quit my job. I screwed myself over. I'm in like the worst position ever, and I was still doing my Hey J content, I think, like somewhat, but I'm like, you know what? I enjoy doing this. Maybe I should just start streaming on Twitch, and let's do it in the morning. And Animal Crossing had come out, and if you remember at the start of the pandemic, everybody was playing Animal Crossing.
Yeah, it was Animal Crossing Doom.
Yeah, and I had never played Animal Crossing before, so I'm like, you know what? This looks like a chill game. I'm gonna play it at 9 a.m. every morning, and that is my excuse to get out of bed. Like I didn't have work to go to, so I'm like, this will be my reason to get out of bed, start some coffee, and it's a very chill game. And I just started doing that every day, and that was how I got out of bed. Animal Crossing got me out of bed, and by 11 or noon, I was like, all right, bye chat, and then I'm like, okay, what do I do with my day? But I had like that energy, and I could start thinking more now because I was out of bed and actually doing stuff. And I just kept doing that. And then I started playing other games that I was enjoying in the evening. And I had built up a viewership of about 10 regulars, and it was just chilling, playing games, trying things. I was going through my Castlevania pledge eventually. And then,
Yeah.
because I was streaming on YouTube too, now that I remember. Yeah, that's when I was doing Castlevania stuff. And then the Monster Hunter stuff blew up. And that's when that's when I first experienced talking to hundreds of people at the same time. And yeah, well, the rest is history. So
Yeah, it's funny you talk about your Animal Crossing days. It makes you think about some of your OG. Like I want to give a shout out to people like Chrissy Chu. Howul was actually there for like Castlevania and such, and then
mhm.
your editor. And the thing is, and then you have things like so I talk about challenges. You have Umel, Umel Gaming. He was there watching you, and it's so funny because that's the things that I talk about that's challenging is that we always get on Jay about like, oh, Jay can't read right, or maybe it's just streamer brain because we know his name is Umel, but then like take last night or whatever it was, like you were streaming and you're like, hey, Umel or whatever, and then like I'm like, it's Umel, it's Umel, and then he comes into
I've
my
never
channel,
called him
and
Yumo.
then and then I'm like, oh, Umel. I know his
I'm
name is
I'm
Umel.
overwriting your brain. Like, nope, this is
Yeah.
what you're gonna call him.
It's like because you see how it's spelled, I don't know, like your brain just does something, even though you know his name is Umel. Anyway, but it's so funny.
Yeah.
Mentioning names, oh my gosh, like you and Haul, it's you call him
Raul.
like Hall for someone. Yeah, it's like Raz Al Ghul.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's like Haul. That's how I remember it.
Raul.
And yeah, so Haul. And the thing is, but it's just funny because you have two Hauls in your chat.
I
You have
do. Yeah.
Roll de Fama and another Haul. Anyway, it's funny because like Mini Guy and everyone they call him Raul. The thing.
Oh, I could have
No,
sworn someone told me it was pronounced Hull. So for the longest time, I
it
just didn't
was
know.
it, it was Raul who told you it was Hall because you were trying to pronounce it and you said Hall. And he goes, "That's close enough," and he just let you call him Hall for like a whole year or more.
I've
And
never
then,
been so aware of how much I mispronounce things. Like I look back at my
oh, me
old
too.
Monster Hunter videos, and I used to call Rathian, uh, Raytheon, I think is what I used to call her, Raytheon
Yeah,
or a
Raytheon.
Rathalos. I was like, oh,
It's like ghost version.
it's what? Sorry.
I say it's a ghost version of Rathian.
Yeah. Hey, maybe that they should make a version of that.
That's
Like
like a Pokemon thing. Like, look, it's Raytheon.
oh, even when I was younger, I remember watching Naruto, and because I would always watch it in Japanese and just read the subtitles, I didn't actually know how to pronounce things like in English.
Right.
And I remember the Hokage. I would go to my friends and I would talk about, and I pronounced it Hokage or something, and they just looked at me like, "What did you say? Hokage, you mean?" And yeah, they'd make fun of me. I blame the fact that I grew up in a French English environment. Like I grew up fully
Yeah, it's that
bilingual.
bilingual brain.
And so I have no idea what pronunciation rules to use. Is it the French rule, the English
Hmm.
rule, or some other language
Yes.
and as for reading, yeah, I just in games, I really hate like long boxes of text. That's not a stream thing. I like to be taught through gameplay, not through
Yeah.
text.
Well, Mega Man style. That's how Mega Man X teaches you stuff. They
Yeah,
teach you in the beginning level. I love that, and it's so good. That's good game design. Love you, Capcom. Anyway, so
yeah,
but yeah, like you talk about the reading. I'm a slow reader. Like I'm a person when I read something, I read it like a play. Like so, when I read a book. So like my wife, she'll read a book in like a week, and I'll read a book in a month. So it's the same book, but it's the time difference. And so like I'm trying to play Splatoon right now, and they have these fun little quips on screen, like all these puns. And I'm between trying to read that, do what I'm doing, and look at chat. I don't have time to read what Mari is telling me, so I just miss it. I'm like, whoops! So I'll have to go back and rewatch it or replay it.
right.
Ah.
Yeah,
So anyway, but like I said, but as for big long things of text and not being able to pronounce things right, like you said, you grew up in the bilingual household. Basically, that's how you grew up. And they always say like if you're bilingual, you speak two languages like half good. And I make a joke
yeah.
that I'm like, because I speak a lot of languages, so I'm like, oh, that means I must speak everything really bad, and I do.
That's even worse. A polyglot. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you're
So
mixing all sorts
it's
of stuff.
oh my gosh, yeah. So anyway, but as the thing is, before we get to the topic, last thing I want to talk about because we're talking about so many different games is, it's nice that we're finally getting to this podcast. We're at the end of January. We've been talking about this podcast since last year, technically.
Oh wow, this is going.
Yeah, but here we are. We said we do it in January, and then but a lot of our holiday stuff rolled over to
Mhm.
January, and so we're finishing all that. But hey, it's technically still January. It's still gonna be
Yeah.
out in January, so we got it, and then we'll have
I just
February
looked at the
done.
date. We have 3 days left, so we just made it
Take
in.
that January,
This will
and
probably drop tomorrow or the day after, so still in
yeah,
January.
I figured you drop it on Monday. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's the thing of February's about to hit. Like we just had Dark. Was it a game I'm really excited about? It's a remaster. Dead
Nice.
Space. Dead Space.
Oh
Sorry,
yes.
I thought the initials DSR. I'm like that Dark Souls. I'm like
Yeah.
Dead Space
Mhm.
remaster or the remake just came out, and I'm really excited about playing it. And but then we have things like we got Hogwarts Legacy coming out. We've got Wild Hearts coming out. We've
That one I'm
got
looking forward
uh
to.
finally we're getting Advance Wars reboot camp. I love Advance Wars, so like I'm gonna be broke next month.
Mhm.
But it's a good problem to have, which makes me I have to ask you is so what because we always have our schedule, and for us mostly the gaming we do is the gaming we do on stream.
Yep.
So what have you been playing in your free time? Like anything or
Actually, so I used to play more on my free time.
Mhm.
I'm shocked at how much. So I used to juggle multiple like jobs to generate revenue for myself, and I've gone full time with my company since January.
Yes.
Like I am fully dependent on my company to survive. And I have never worked like I have no just, all this to say I have no free time. I have been stretched so thin with this. I'm like, wow, I'm focused on one thing, and it's harder than when I was juggling 3, 4 jobs, and it's just wild to me. And it just shows to what point, like, wow, how much was I holding myself back before, like, because now I'm seeing it, like I'm 100% committed to the company. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I could have been doing this for the past, year or 2 years. Where would I be today if I could have done that? Well, I'd have like, it's a money thing. You can only dedicate yourself so much. So all that to say, not much free time. Over the holidays, there are 2 games I played off stream. One is Cartographer, I think it's called, Carto. Highly recommend. It's a nice, fun little indie game, and I'm actually going to pull up my Steam because I really want to get the name right. It's such a unique game. It's about you play as this character who is lost because of a storm. You land on an island, and you find pieces of the island, and basically you open your map, and you can place pieces you find to rebuild the world that you're exploring. I don't know if you can understand.
It's gotta be called Cartographer, because I mean that's
it's called Carto. I just pulled it.
Carto. It's just called Carto.
Carto. Okay. And so it's like a puzzle. It's like a puzzle adventure game, but it's so well done. So yeah, it takes about 6-8 hours to beat. So it's very quick. Highly recommend that. And I've also started playing.
Hold on, Jay.
Yeah.
There you go. You're back.
Okay. And I've also started playing Kena, Bridge of Spirits.
Oh, awesome. That game's a lot harder than people know.
It's so hard. I was going to save a lot of this for my review, so I'm not going to get too far into it.
Right.
Because I'm not done with it. But I was expecting a fun, whimsical little 3D platformer action adventure game. I'm getting slapped, and I'm playing on normal difficulty. I'm getting slapped so hard by not just the bosses, but the minions. And I'm like, it's reminding me of Dark Souls. And I'm like, why are you so hard? You're a beautiful, cute game. You should not be this hard. And it's actually something that frustrates me because the environment doesn't fit the gameplay. Like, it's hardcore Dark Souls gameplay in a very beautiful little, like, whimsical, and there is nothing more, I think, emotionally jarring and frustrating than having like a little side character smile at you and being all cute, and then the next scene you're getting like literally destroyed and punched by like almost like a demon-like tree. It's just so frustrating because like I feel it's a mismatch for the game. So all that said, I scaled back the difficulty, and now I can actually enjoy it. But there's 5 difficulty levels. I was playing on normal, which is the 3rd one. I scaled it back to level 2 to be comfortable. So,
well, I'm glad that it actually has difficulty levels, because again, what we're going to be talking about doesn't have difficulty levels.
Yeah.
And before I guess we segue into that, I'm going to say that for me, you know what? I'll say it like this. So funny enough, I have a lot of games that I got over the holidays, and one of them that I was really excited about playing was going to be the Guardians of the Galaxy game. I'm a huge Guardians fan, even before the movies happened. And then I don't know what happened. Oh, another one was I was gonna play Metroid Dread, and I don't know what happened. I was talking to Nero and a couple other guys, and we were talking about the Dark Souls and stuff like that, and I started talking about how good Sekiro is, and how Sekiro is like truly challenging. And then because of it, I just had this itch, and I had to scratch it. So I started playing Sekiro in my free time, and I've been having just a bang up time.
This is your second playthrough.
Technically, yes. I should say technically it is. Yes, it is my second playthrough. The reason I say technically is because the first time I played Sekiro, I kicked its butt. And the thing is, it definitely, I don't know if I'm just getting older or what's happening. Honestly, I think it's the fatigue, because it's like the more you have on your plate, the less energy you have for everything. So like when I play Sekiro, I was learning drums at the time. I play like bass and piano, and I was learning drums. So I'm a percussion kind of guy. So because of it, there's some rhythm that you can pick up on in the game. If you learn that rhythm, like you can deflect properly, and you can become like this immovable wall that just plows through everything.
People call it FromSoft's rhythm game. Like that's
it is. It's very much like a rhythm game. And then so I really kicked its butt. But this time I'm playing it again, and it just shows the much different mindset I have, because I've been getting trashed pretty badly, and I've been loving it. I've been getting my butt kicked, and I've been loving it. And I just know because that's the joy of playing Sekiro offline, though, is I play for an hour or two or something like that. I can just put it down, and but it's not like when you're streaming. You're dedicated to that 4-hour like block. and you got to go. And even though you're like, I need to put this down or walk away or whatever, let's go. You don't get to do that, and that's a challenge. As you know, when you're playing Dark Souls 1, you were probably frustrated, and you definitely want to put that controller down, take a
Yep.
breather, something.
Yep.
And in From Software games or something that if you're struggling with something, go to bed. Just take it tomorrow. It's something that you threw yourself at for an hour. I guarantee you take a rest. You wake up the next day, pop it on, first, second try. You got it. It's done. It's that fatigue. Because From Software games, when you're fatigued, you don't play them well.
Well, I remember as a kid, I was aware of that. And when I say a kid, I was maybe 10, 12 years old. I would oftentimes rent games. I don't know. Is that done? I don't think you can do that anymore. I would rent games.
GameFly and stuff like that still exist.
It's different. So I would rent games for the weekend, and I'd play them pretty late in the night. And sometimes I'd just get stuck, and these bosses would be ridiculous. Like, we're talking retro games, and it was so frustrating. I remember I would know the hack. I'm like, I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna try in the morning. And in the morning, I would always feel so like stronger, and I would oftentimes overcome my challenges in like 1 or 2 tries. And so it is fatigue. Like, it just, your reflexes and everything does slow down after a while.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm gonna I feel like now it's time.
45 minutes.
I'm gonna take the conch. I'm gonna talk for a bit. So get ready for a little bit of a speech, because now that we've broken the ice, it's time to get to the topic that I've been dying to talk about. And trust me, I'm not making any friends with this topic, but those of you who know me, you know that I love to be wrong. So I'm hoping that all those who don't know me, so viewers, please be kind to Jay. It's on his channel.
Please do not unsub because Blue is here.
Yeah, exactly. Come be mean to me at when I'm streaming, and we'll talk there. Yeah. And then, but for the most part, again, if you guys have something to say, please, put in the comments. Have some discourse there. Do it in the Discord, and I love to see those comments. We want to see those comments, because you guys are gonna be part of this conversation.
I don't think I'm sure what you're gonna say, so I'm really curious.
So yeah, well, okay. What I'm gonna say is that, so the Soulsborne franchise, and when I mean Soulsborne, I'm referring to like the golden age of From Software that we're in right now. So like Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, Elden Ring. These are from, like I said, I call it the Golden Age. Well, I didn't mention Sekiro in this list, even though that is in the Golden Age. Well, that's because it's not really a Soulsborne game. It's like a Souls-like. It's Soul-esque, but it's not definitely a Soulsborne game. But again, we'll touch on Sekiro in a bit. It's not going to be excluded from this conversation. But anyway, these games have a reputation for their difficulty, for being hard and unwelcoming to those without, the skills to pay the bills. That weak will, the weak will be shunned from reaching the credits, and you're told to get good. However, from what I've experienced, these titles are, in fact, dare I say it, they're not hard. Okay, let's talk about the Soulsborne series reputation for difficulty. Okay, so for many people that don't play Soulsborne titles, there's a notion about them being like difficult games, and simply like you hear from the chat like, oh, it's so hard, and you'll die constantly. Like heck, like you've seen your death counters. Like we have like I've had 300 deaths like in Elden Ring. You had like 600 deaths in Elden Ring. I mean, I have like 300 deaths already in like Dark Souls 2, and I'm only halfway through the game. So when people hear that you die a lot, they assume that it means it's really hard. They imagine that it's a super trolly game with like traps around every corner. Much like there's a little sprite game called Adventure Trap 2, and like that's kind of the mindset of what you're expecting. However, it's not the case at all. The game's a pretty standard like metroidvania game, which is called search action genre. But again,
I disagree that I wouldn't say it's a metroidvania. As someone who loves metroidvanias, I would never bin any of the Dark Souls game as a metroidvania.
Well, the reason why you say that is because one, it's in 2D. It's not really like a 3D.
No.
I mean,
nothing to do. It's because you don't get power-ups. To me, the definition of a metroidvania is, well, first of all, you need a map. I don't think you get a map in Dark Souls.
No.
And second, and probably most important, is you have to be able to find power-ups that unlock new
Jay,
areas.
hold on. Wait, I lost you again. There you go. Most important.
The most important part is you have to be able to find power-ups, then unlock new areas.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Dark Souls does not fit that bill.
Well, that's why I say it's like a Metroidvania, but it's not really. It falls under the search action genre. But if anything, it's become its own genre. You know, Souls like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a genre, and it's funny because like, so I know some people are gonna be like, oh, you know, they're gonna bring up like Kingsfield, which I'm like, hey, look, there's a reason it's called Souls like, not Kings like. So, which is some From Software game actually. It was
Okay, I
like
don't know.
it's the precursor to all to even Demon Souls. There's a game franchise called Kingsfield, and it is also hard. It's very much also like Dark Souls, but like in a first person type of thing.
I'm
And
also, just for the record, going to say I disagree with you. And I actually
good.
do think that these games are hard, but I'd love to
Hmm.
learn more because you've already acknowledged the fact that you die a lot. So
Yeah.
please go on and tell me why it's easy.
So I'm going to talk about a bit why they're not hard. Okay, so like I said, well, when people talk about the difficulty of Soulsborne games, you know, they're typically not talking about the environments. You know, even though some areas in each game can be a bit trolly, but or just kind of difficult. But for the most part, what they're recalling is the thing that sticks in their mind are the enemies. It's the bosses. The enemy encounters are made with fantastic design and are equipped with truly punishing attacks.
Mhm.
I will not deny that. But to circle back on the thought where when it comes to the core design of these titles, they're not actually hard. There's a YouTuber called Inferno Plus, and he used a term that I want to borrow. It's called player modulated difficulty, and that is 100% accurate. The difficulty of Dark Souls is pretty much completely in your control. Dark Souls has things like summons, co-op gameplay, and honestly, just some builds that are absolutely broken that you can just face tank the game. And and then there's like the easiest thing to control your difficulty, and that's leveling up. The thing that I do the most, right?
Yeah.
And I catch a lot of flack for being over leveled. They're like, "Oh, Blue, you're already 160. That's where you need to be to finish the game." Well, I do that, like I said, because I want to get through the game, but leveling up, even still, doesn't exactly make the game harder or easier sometimes. Now, like you did Millennia. You were hitting a bit of a wall, a little bit with Millennia.
She was a
You were
wall.
like,
Yeah.
it was, it was, you were like 130 or so, but you went and got like 10 levels and you beat her.
Mm.
Now,
It's not because
go
of the
ahead.
levels though.
Exactly. Yes. Go ahead. Yeah, you can comment on that.
That
So, what made the difference,
Well,
in
the
your opinion?
difference was throwing myself at her over and over again,
Okay, true.
because I tried a lot of strategies with Melania. It started with I went at her with my usual build, which was two great
Mhm.
swords, and I
Right.
was like, this is too slow. And then I went with the whips, and I was like, the whips aren't working. And I eventually did find a way that the whips did work. And I also looked up a lot of cheese strats, and someone told me about the ice pots. So like to stop the her dance waterfowl dance move, and I was like, oh my god, I tried the pots and that didn't work for me either because I'm like the animation is too slow. This isn't cheese. This is garbage. So I actually learned how to dodge the waterfowl dance where I can actually do it quite reliably. Like 90% of the time, I can dodge that thing now.
Yeah, you get really good at it.
And it's a matter of learning. Like I just actually, it's one learning, but also a state of mind. And I shared this in one of my journals about Melania. I'm like, I need to stop being afraid of her. And as soon as, and maybe you and players like you who are what I call more naturally good at these games, I don't think you guys feel the fear. Like the fear impacts me where I actually, it hurts my, I'll panic roll and do stuff like that. And as soon as I start getting comfortable and confident with the fight and I can see the move and I'm more, the boss is over very quick. So it's really overcoming that personal obstacle of fear and a little bit of muscle memory. That's what people need.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100%. Plus, it's like that way you play because, like me, I'm a very aggressive person. I like to attack in those type of games, and that's one reason the thing about Sekiro is being aggressive actually is usually very beneficial. You want to be aggressive. You don't want to be very defensive. You want to counter. That's the type of defense that they want, but it's not about like weighing things out. In the older Souls games too, sometimes you want to have things weigh out and then pick your shots, stuff like that. Older Monster Hunters like that, but like Elden Ring, there's a lot of fights where it's about being aggressive. The thing is, and being up in the face of your target too. And with Melania, again, like when you handle her, yeah, it's about you got to stick on her. You got the more you back off of her,
Yeah.
the more she's gonna get you. It's almost like an endurance fight at that point because like the longer you're stuck in that fight, the worse you're gonna be.
Yeah. But now to loop it back, because you were saying leveling is not what makes it necessarily easier.
Right. So the thing is, because you're talking about builds, I want to touch on that in a sec. So I was saying that like how when it comes to the leveling though, you see, Soulsborne games are as difficult, in my opinion, as like any RPG. Because in RPGs, like you just did, I mean, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, but if we're talking about the OG Final Fantasy, you could just level up. And if you were level 99, no matter what you fight until you get to like maybe disc 3, nothing's going to be hard. You can hit just the attack button and you can just kill it like one hit. But it's the thing of when in Dark Souls, if you level up, that actually isn't 100% true. You could be level 200, but you could still have difficulty because pretty much stamina and health are the two things that really control like really make the game easier or not, how many hits or not you can take and how often can you attack or roll, or because the stamina is like a tug of war. Sometimes, like, again, so with it, like, you use that to attack. I told you, use it to dodge, use it to block, and use it to run away, stuff like that. And there's a gauge of where you get hit. Let's say you're blocking, and that takes away 3/4 of your stamina. And now you have a choice. You can either attack, but now you have no stamina left. You're gonna get hit. So you choose the roll, and you let your thing, so you get that space. But now he's gonna attack again, and then you're in the same cycle over and over again. But if you get yourself a little more stamina, well, now you can get an attack, and you can roll. So that's the thing where stamina plays a part there. But that's the thing about like Soulsborne games where they have that tug of war, which is different from like Monster Hunter games, where your stamina is used to mostly like dodge and use some stuff. But Monster Hunter games, it's more about when you get an attack, it's like a battle, it's like a dance, and then when you get that topple, like you change the tide of the battle, like you're on the aggressive now. And in Soulsborne game, you're constantly playing the tug of war. And so because of people who like to compare the combat of those two games, I feel like are wrong because they're very different.
I find the biggest difference is the fact that Monster Hunter requires more player stamina. Like you have to be,
Yes.
the Soulsborne, all the bosses in the Soulsborne fight, despite their difficulty, they're done in 2-3 minutes. You either die fast or you win fast.
Yeah, I talk about how every like Soulsborne fight is pretty much 5 minutes or less. It's like a sprint rather than Monster Hunter. It's like a marathon.
Yeah, like Dark Tempered Volcana. Oh my God, you got to be on your game.
30 to 35 minutes of nonstop.
You have to be on your game and like alert, and if that drops, boom, you're gone and
yeah,
you're out of there.
Yep. So anyway, so like I was saying though, the thing about also with Monster Hunter, something that I really like is how your gear, if you want new gear in like a Soulsborne game, if you're hitting a wall, you can walk away and you can go get some XP off of XP fodder, aka just mobs, and you can go find new weapons or something like that, or you can upgrade your weapons, because that's the other thing. Besides like your health and your like stamina being the only two stats that really adjust that difficulty, the other thing is your weapons. Because you can have no health, okay, whatsoever. Like I say, you can be level 200, but if I put it all into magic, if I never use magic, the game's still gonna be hard. Your levels, nothing. It's where and how you use your levels. But if I have, because there's people they call it SL1, which is soul level 1. They literally never level up once the entire gameplay. But however, they will level up like their weapons. And because if you have like 50 strength and you hit somebody with like a broken hilt, you're gonna be dealing 5 to 10 damage regardless. But you can have only 10 strength, but you get a plus 10 sword, you're gonna be dealing 300 damage. Though your gear absolutely carries you way more. But that's more that, like I said, that modulated difficulty. What you wear changes how you can handle a fight. Like if you wear full Havel and you go take on the 4 kings, you'll take like 1/16 your health with every hit. You never get knocked over. You absolutely can just face tank that fight. You can just plow through the guy. It's it's ridiculous.
So your argument for the fact that it's easy is that the game offers a lot of solutions, and that the way you're playing is maybe not the optimal way to play whatever area, but once you find it, that's where it becomes easy. Is that your
Yeah,
argument?
yeah. That's part of my argument is that because like look at Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter, you can't just level up and get better at a monster. You have to go fight that monster, get its equipment, and you get that equipment by defeating said monster.
Yeah.
The thing is, and so you have to, it's because gear will help you in Monster Hunter. That that's your way of leveling up. But it's not like you can just go out of your way and do something simpler, and then you just magically become more powerful. You have to get good, and then get your stuff, and then you can, that will help you defeat said monster.
So are you saying Monster Hunter is a hard game then, or can be a hard game? Like, so I
think
need to understand what is a hard
You
game
know,
for you.
it's funny you say that. I would dare say, even though I never found Monster Hunter, in my opinion, to be hard,
Right.
I would say Monster Hunter. I'm gonna make a lot of enemies here. I would say Monster Hunter is probably harder than Dark Souls because of that.
I at face value, I agree.
Yeah, on paper.
I don't feel that's true. Although
No,
Lucent
that's
Narga has something else to say about that. But
well,
okay,
yeah, but
actually,
yeah. Think about Lucent Argent. Imagine with Lucent, you could just level up. Imagine you could just keep fighting Devil Joe or
yes.
something like that,
So
and get to
okay,
level 200, and he'd be easier.
the old games make me agree with you wholeheartedly. Like playing Monster Hunter 3U, there is nothing I can do in that game to just magically get better. Actually, some people said my armor and stuff can be upgraded. So okay, maybe there's some
Yeah,
wiggle room
there's
to it.
I admit there's some tweaking on your gear you could do, but
But yeah, but that's not, it's not I just go off the shelf and like it's a
yeah,
big
go get it,
commitment.
but you gotta go
I
earn it
gotta,
too. You gotta go work for it. Yeah,
yeah.
there's yeah, Monster
And
Hunter has a bit of commitment to it.
but okay, let's put our darling aside. But outside of that, what's a game you would say is hard?
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna quote Jason Gastro on this. Many of you may know him as the YouTuber Video Game Donkey. He himself said, "This is like the hard version of Dark Souls," and the game he was talking about is Sekiro. Sekiro is
Okay.
hard.
Okay.
I love that game. And I'll tell you right now, it's hard. And you know what's interesting? I've been talking to people about this topic in chat,
Hmm.
and a lot of your viewers, a lot of my viewers, have something in common that's going to shock. And I want to see those comments in below. How many people here have actually finished Sekiro? Because a lot of them have said that they've either A, never played it,
Hmm.
B, didn't get very far in it, or C, pretty much didn't even get to the halfway point of the game. They all said they couldn't do it because they said the game's too hard.
So
All these Dark Souls veterans who are
yeah,
helping me, they think Sekiro is too hard. And you want to know why?
because there's not,
Because
once you're
go
stuck,
ahead.
you're stuck. You can't go anywhere. You have to just get good at the fight.
The thing is, it's because we'll talk about stuck in a second. Is that the problem is it's because you can't just go level up. There is no other piece of gear you can go get. Like there
Mhm.
are no cheese builds, stuff like that. You have to, yes, get good at fight. And also the like Ninja Guy in Black. I love this game. Ninja Guy in Black did a thing where like that has difficulties, and if you do really bad, they'll give you a thing called Ninja Dog mode. You know, the thing is they go like here's baby mode to help you play the game, get through it, whatever.
Mhm.
But when you play it on like Ninja Master mode, which I did play it on, I beat it with 0 deaths.
Wow.
Like that game is brutal, and I love it. And so it's funny when I play Dark Souls, people are like, get good. I'm like, look, you don't know the things I've done. Listen here, whippersnapper. But the thing is, like with Sekiro, it does like the same thing. Where the way in Ninja Gaiden Black and Sekiro, you get like upgrades, like more health or a more attack or anything. You have to defeat the boss that's in front of you. You have to go do that. And I really love that because everyone, when they talk about Dark Souls, they love watching someone play Dark Souls because they want to see that person struggle and they want to see that person overcome that struggle.
And how they'll overcome.
The thing is, yeah, and the thing is because they go like, "That was me. That's what I went through," and and so they cheer for them when they succeed. And but the thing about Dark Souls is everyone wants like this base level that we all have the same experience, but we don't have the same experience. In Sekiro, everyone truly is in the same level playing field, and they all get to experience it really the same. That's why I love watching people play Sekiro, because that one's truly balanced. We're all stuck in the same boat. But like I play Monster Hunter, I'm a gunner. I use a gun. I'm not the same as a meleeer. Same way a magic person's not the same as a meleeer in Dark Souls. The thing is, I love how Dark Souls gives you that variety of handling it in all these different ways, because Dark Souls like bosses, they make the encounter and then you make your character, and then basically From Software says, let's see how your character does with our encounter. In Sekiro, they have everything they need. They know the combat system. They go, cool, here's the encounter. We worked it with the combat. Now you get to work with that combat and see how we built it together to figure out how to do this fight.
Oh.
And so the thing is, I love Sekiro so much, and I just was so shocked to see how many of our Dark Souls veterans out there who have helped me, who have helped you, not beat or play Sekiro because they say it's, quote, too hard.
So I really wish I had played more Sekiro to be able to contribute to that thought. I played it enough to understand what you're saying, where it's linear, and actually that's some of the criticism Sekiro gets, is the fact that people don't like the fact that you can't explore. You can only go one way forward, and you can't upgrade different parts of your armor necessarily to overcome or customize. So I understand all that, and I never considered that before.
And
so when
it's funny. Go ahead.
So yeah, comparing the two, Sekiro, I would agree, is harder than Dark Souls and Elden Ring, but I'm not quite sure I'm willing to say, in comparison, yes, one is harder than the other, but I don't think that means necessarily that Dark Souls is easy.
Well, the thing is, that's the thing. It can be easy, but that's something that I want to bring out that the From Software team does brilliantly, that I absolutely love. People always talk about how when Sekiro came out, people wanted it to have an easy mode. Everyone's like, oh, why is it not easier difficulty? All these things. That happens with every From Software game. And but a lot of people were advocating for it, even other Dark Souls people, because they were talking about how hard it is. Now, part of that is because you said muscle memory. Yeah, because they're used to dodging. Like, they're used to those iframes of dodging. That's what they know. The dodging's out, deflecting's in. Okay, so like that muscle memory of hitting the circle button or the B button or whatever to dodge, that's not it. They have to hit L1. It's all about that left bumper for deflecting and having that proper timing. And so that's a little bit of that criticism I think that happened. People were like, wait, my muscle memory, it's ruined now. So, but I told you, there was an advocating for a lot of like the easy mode. And I want to say, it's funny. Something that From Software does is that they don't just have an easy mode. They don't just have it where you can, on a menu, you choose your difficulty. I told you, they have it built into the game, and I appreciate that. I like how there's ways to make the game easier, but the best thing is they actually have ways to make it harder. Here's something that's really cool. In Dark Souls 2, for example, there is a thing that you can throw in a bonfire, and it makes the whole area New Game Plus difficulty. Even though you're still... Yeah. So if you're like, you know what, I want this game to be harder, throw the thing in, you can up the difficulty. Now, you can't take it back down. It only goes up. And there's a thing in Sekiro where you can hold this thing. It's called the Demon Bell. And when you hold it, everything becomes harder. And you can just merely consume it and makes everything go back to the way it is. But the best thing about that is that it says there is a difficulty, and we're all playing on normal mode. Everything that we've experienced in Dark Souls, Sekiro, whatever, it's all normal mode. You're all experiencing it. There is harder versions, and you can make it harder. And I like that you can go up, but you can't really go down.
Right. So here's why I'm saying I don't quite disagree on saying Dark Souls is easy, because I agree it can be easy. But the way I judge a game's difficulty is how a player is kind of expected to play a game the first time in a bubble. So I don't take into consideration, for example, in Dark Souls, there's a ton of cheese builds, but what are the chances you're going to find those cheese builds if you were playing by yourself and you weren't looking at those guides online? So I'm assuming, you're not getting help from outside on how to optimize your build and all that. So if you're going into a Dark Souls game, unless you are investing a significant amount of time and trial and error, you're not going to know what those cheese builds are. And by the time you do unlock those cheese builds, you have probably already made it past the bulk of the game and understood the bulk of the challenge. So in that sense, you know, cheese builds aside. So for a new player experiencing Dark Souls, it is hard because it is so punishing, because there is so much to learn in that first playthrough. And I think games like that, and this is why I want to go back and play it, because now that I'm seeing the pattern in these sorts of games, I played Dark Souls 1, I played Dark Souls 3, I played Bloodborne, Elden Ring, and I know now what's expected of me as a player. And Dark Souls, I know a lot more about the world that I kind of want. That was my first experience, Dark Souls 1. That's why I want to go back to it. And I feel that's why it's a game where you hear so many people talk about their second runs or their new plus run, or, you know, doing it with different builds and all of that. It's a game that invites you, and I think, what's the word you use? Player modulated difficulty. Because it puts so much on the player to customize their experience. At that point, yeah, that's when the difficulty slider becomes, you know, make it as you will. Here's the universe we built for you. Play it however you want, hard or easy. But I think on that first run, it is just hard. Like, there's no other game I can think of where they will just not care and hurt you right off the bat. And it's not that I do feel the hurting is part of teaching, which I really respect in game design. We mentioned Mega Man X at the beginning, and I think you're referring to potentially the Sequelitis video that went viral on YouTube and dissects why Mega Man X is such a great game at teaching a player without using a tutorial. And in that way, I think Dark Souls does it, just with a lot less forgiveness. Very early example is in Dark Souls 1. I think when you make it up the stairs, the first, and there's a boulder that comes down and makes you run back.
Yeah, the very beginning.
I think that unlocks the first flask, and it basically teaches you, like, sorry?
It does, yes.
Yeah, so it teaches you about, expect the unexpected and explore. And if you explore, you will be rewarded. So in the design sense, the game, and also there's always like little shinies and stuff. And I saw another video where they praised Dark Souls for making the player feel smart, and why so many Souls-like fail, because they don't understand the subtle design that the FromSoft put into Dark Souls, where it makes the player feel smart, but really those shinies are all strategically placed so that you can find your way and make your way to the next spot. So I'm kind of like going in circles here. The design aspect is fantastic, but I still think the game is super hard, because especially the early games, when the punishment for dying was the run back, and those never get easier necessarily. I don't know if you agree with or disagree with me on that one.
The runback's this thing that you and I have a really weird thing on. I think it was Vulcan. He brought up a thing. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna hate the runback and stuff like that." And there's some areas that do have really bad runback. Mm-hmm. And he always likes to ask me. He goes, "So what do you think of the runback?" After I finished, maybe it was ads. It was somebody. They brought up, "What did you think of the runback?" And I told him, "Actually, I don't hate it. I like the runback." And he goes, so "Really?" Much. And I was like, I told him, "This is why." I told him, one, the runback's not that bad. But secondly, the runback does a few things. One, depending also on the title. One, it gives you a chance to get souls. Because if you're having trouble, you might need souls to upgrade. Those things are there. Now, in Dark Souls 2, I want you to know that after you kill something 15 times, it doesn't respawn. So, losing your souls...
What? That's the magic number?
Yeah.
Kill anything 15 times and it stays dead?
Yep. So some things only have one life, like some mini bosses, but for the most part, everything has 15 deaths after it's killed. So if you kept dying and you got through an area 15 times, they'll stop respawning. But it also means those are souls that you have lost. Those are souls that you potentially do not get to go back and farm. So, and I like that. Now, you can use a thing that respawns everybody, or you can use a thing where, again, up the difficulty. But the thing is, hey, that's more souls and more drop chance. But anyway, but the thing is, but I told them the other thing is it gives you a chance to learn. Like especially like to say Sekiro. Sekiro, I love the run back in Sekiro because when I would go back and like traverse, it has a lot of stealth, and I'm a big stealth fan.
I hate
So the
stealth.
thing is, if you don't, that's the thing. If you don't like stealth, then I will tell people like Sekiro, it does. You don't have to be stealth, but it kind of wants you to be stealth. The thing is, like it's kind of one of the ideas of the game, and I'm someone who loves stealth, and I loved learning the paths and like picking people off and learning what is the most efficient way of killing everyone. So that way, by the time I do the run back, I could be like boom, 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 and like no one even sees me. Like you could stealth kill everyone on the way there, or and there's ways to pull people off and all kinds of stuff. And I love that. That was a fun learning thing for me. But if you have something like Dark Souls, where again it gives you a chance to get souls, it gives you a chance to learn some of these how to properly time your attacks, and sometimes even running back gives you time to think. Sometimes when you just throw yourself back in immediately, you're not thinking, you're just going. And sometimes you need those moments to start taking those steps to think what went wrong.
Yes, but oh man, I hate runbacks. Sorry.
And well, you had a lot of problems with runbacks because again, you died a lot more because you had a lot less health than I did. Because when you have a run back, you get hit twice, you're dead, you're running back. That sucks. Me, I get hit 10 times before I die. So I don't have as many run backs. So I have more time in the fight to learn the fight, to observe the fight, because of the way I leveled up. Because I made my character like a Monster Hunter character. And the thing is, I wanted to have a big health bar, big stamina bar, and I don't care if I only deal 10 damage. I would rather be in a fight for a marathon than a sprint. Anyway, then I think that if you had done that, you probably would have had a better time.
Probably. But even the grind I don't like, and this is a fundamental difference between us, is you enjoy the grind. You enjoy repetition to some extent. I hate repetition. I am someone who is very kind of paranoid about my time. I hate being inefficient with my time. So anytime I feel that my time, because I'm always trying to do so much in a day and I always run out of time. So to me, time is
there's not enough time in a day.
Right. And there's so many things I want to experience and do. So when I feel my time is being wasted, that is like, that just builds my frustration up. And run backs, to me, I see zero value in a run back. The most I will agree on is, okay, it gives me time to think, but I don't like, the Melania in Elden Ring, Melania's, what are they called? The Grace. It's right there. And you probably saw me on stream when I'm shook. I just, I don't go back into it. I think, and I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And I just stay. So I don't need that run back to calm myself down. Now, if you look at my fight with, is it Godfrey is the all strength dude?
Oh yeah.
The lion.
So,
Godfrey was this.
Yeah, Horaloo, by the way, is his second form.
Okay, well, both of them. I was dying very fast. But if you see my first fights with him, I was laughing. Like I was having a good time dying to him because I was learning him. And the run back, like the Grace was right next to it. So I'm like, okay, so that my fun is being done because I'm progressing, I'm learning the fight. Whereas in the older Dark Souls, I have the threat of the run back looming over me as if you fail, you got to do this again. And that is a punishment that just drives my, first of all, it drives my fear up because now there's more at stake in the fight where I'm like, I'm worried about the run back. So I have to like deal with that emotion. And then there's the rising frustration of, I got to do this run back again. And then I'm doing the run back. I'm more frustrated. I get into the fight again. And then I'm performing worse because I'm frustrated. And then I die. And then it just cycles into insanity.
Yeah, that's a deadly cycle you just built for yourself. It's so funny because I want you to know this and you're going to hate yourself for this. So a lot of bosses in Dark Souls, just like in Elden Ring, they actually probably have a bonfire right by the boss, and you missed a lot of them.
I don't think I missed that many of them.
I'm dead serious, Jay. Yeah, you missed a lot of bonfire.
In Dark Souls? Really?
Yeah. Dude, oh my, you're gonna love. See, here's something you'll really like about Dark Souls 2.
I did not.
There's a bonfire by like every boss in Dark Souls 2, but they're always hidden. But they'll be right by them. You just gotta be behind an invisible wall or something. But they're right there. So I'm just letting you know that some of the run back that you had was because you missed a bonfire, even if it made the distance half the distance. But like when you did, what's it called? The Capra Demon. You had to run back from Firelink Shrine all the way. You always had like a 3 minute run back.
No, no,
But
I
there was
found the one for Capra Demon. I found the one in the sewers. So I just had to go up like an elevator, I think.
no, I rewatched your stream.
Oh,
You
okay.
ran from Firelink. So the thing is, but there was a closer one by, or there was a quicker path, for example.
That's a
And
long
you
run.
always but you always took the long way.
Hmm.
But
But
stuff like that.
people
But
even say Dark Souls 2 has the longest runbacks, though. That's that, and I
no,
haven't played it, so
disagree. 100% disagree.
huh.
I can't believe someone has said that. Anyway, and somebody, if people are gonna comment, they're like, "No, it didn't." I'm like, "You guys miss bonfires." I'm playing through this right now. I have found so many bonfires that my viewers have been like, "I missed that bonfire. I didn't know one was there." And there's a cool thing in Dark Souls 2 where you can see all because you can teleport like from the beginning. You don't need to wait until later in the game. You can teleport to any
Hmm.
map in any bonfire. And there's a part of the game where you'll get to see how many bonfires you found in that area and how many you haven't.
Hmm.
So you might be like, "Oh, I only found one bonfire, but there was three." Yeah, stuff like that. Like there, or you got 2 out of 3, and you don't realize the one you missed may have been right there by the boss.
Damn. You got me thinking, have you played Kina?
No, I'm very familiar with it though.
Because I'm
But
curious for your experience because I realize that game doesn't is similar to Sekiro in the sense that you cannot well, you don't level up. You can't customize your armor. You can customize your abilities to some extent. Um
yeah,
and
like in Sekiro.
right. And so it really like the fight really relies on you just knowing how to read the opponent and execute your abilities. So I
Yeah.
think it has the difficulty just like it fits the bill of being a difficult game based on your description. So I'm curious how you would experience that. But let's think outside of Soulsborne. What's another game that you can think of that you would label as hard?
Well, I mentioned Ninja Guy in Black, which is funny because it's another ninja game.
Hmm.
Anyway, I say Black because sometimes when I mention Ninja Guy, they think I mean the old NES game, which is also extremely hard.
That was
You know
super
what?
hard.
I beat that as a kid. I beat all three. I beat Ninja Game 1, 2, and
Wow.
3
I have
as a
yet
kid.
to beat Ninja Guy. I've only played the first. And I remember my mother got that for me. She found it in a bargain bin. I remember she brought it back unexpected, like surprise gift. I was like, oh, cool. I love ninjas. And I love the music. I think it was one of the first NES games with cutscenes in it. And like everything about it was so awesome. And I'm just like, why is it so hard?
Yeah.
But back then, all Nintendo games were like,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the most part.
because a lot of the old NES games, they're all or 8-bit, 16-bit, they're all like basically 1 to 2 hours at most games. Some games are only 20 minutes long,
Right.
but you die so much they become entire weekends. So
Yeah.
that's that mindset. Like we know, another hard game, for example, is the first TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, the first one, not the arcade one, which is the second one,
Yeah.
but the first one where that game's very hard. And I actually didn't beat that game until I got in college. It was my freshman year in college, and I was like, I'm gonna finally beat this game, and I did, and my goodness, was it hard. That game is painful.
Yeah, I never really, I know of it and I've seen it and all that. I've never played it. I did have the second one though, the arcade one.
That
Uh,
game's great. That's a beat 'em up. That's a great game.
yeah. Um, a lot of retro games I think fit the bill of being hard. Just like I
Yeah.
agree, Ninja Gaiden is really hard, and there's nothing you can do to make it easier than
Hmm.
playing it
Right.
until um,
Yeah, until you master it.
eh,
Exactly.
to some degree, I would say even Castlevania is probably like
Oh, Castlevania was hard. Yeah, I beat those too. Those are hard.
they're very hard. Yeah. Is there?
Like they
Mhm. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, thank goodness for nowadays. Like you're playing it with like save states, and I think that's a legit way of playing. Go for it.
My
Like
God, if I didn't have save
like
states, oh,
like look, we have things to do. We can't be playing this all the time. We're not kids anymore. But that's like with Ninja Turtles. They just released the Cowabunga collection, and it has like all of them on there, and it's fantastic. And one of the games again is the original. And I recently have been playing them. That's one of the things I did over the holiday break. I was playing that. And I finished almost all the games now because there's achievements for each one. But like getting to that first game again,
yeah.
I was thinking like, my goodness, thank God for save states. I showed my wife the
But
dreaded dam level.
the
So
fact that the save states makes it bearable, and the fact that a save state makes it go from hard to playable, doesn't that just tell you that the real difficulty was the run back?
doing it over and over again. No, it's about the perfection.
Well,
That's what
the save state only just it eliminates the run back essentially. It lets you
it.
practice the hard part over and over.
Well, No, because sometimes you can get the snot kicked out of you on your way to a boss,
Yes.
and then you're like, the boss is that bad, but I just don't have enough health to fight him. And then
Mm.
sometimes it's not always about the boss. Sometimes it's everything that beats you up on the way. And Dark Souls also does that to you.
Or ghouls and goblins.
Oh my
I
god.
don't even want to talk about it. I think we can just agree it's hard, but it's not
Yes.
even it's hard for heart's sake. It's not even like fun. And maybe I know some people will disagree on this because I put a review up on this channel about Ghosts and Goblins.
Yeah, I remember. I
Oh,
remember.
what a stupid game. I hate that game so much. It reminds me of everything I hate about old games. And it's okay. If we're gonna, if I'm bringing up Ghosts and Goblins, yes, Dark Souls is easy. I agree. Elden Ring, all of that, so easy because they're properly designed. Whereas Ghosts and
Yes.
Goblins is just a stupid like kick to the nuts fest of just take it and I really don't understand. I don't. Do you enjoy it? Because I don't know anyone who enjoys
Okay,
it, and I don't
so
understand it.
you're gonna hate me on this. Ghosts and the Goblins is a very very hard game. I've beaten it. And I actually really like Ghosts and Goblins, but it's
Wow.
painfully hard.
Wow.
It's pain. Like no, I'll tell you right now. I will admit it is painfully like frustratingly hard. Like let's put it this way: I can play all these Dark Souls from software games or whatever. I'll never go or these people who talk about like throw their controllers.
Yeah.
Ghosts and Goblins is one of probably I think the 3 games ever in my entire life I've ever squeezed my controller. I'm like oh, like I get like
Have you ever
oh,
thrown your controller?
no, I have never thrown my controller. But there are times where I'm just like you know it's another game though that does that, and you're gonna laugh because I talk about how much I love it. It's Sekiro. Sekiro
Oh,
frustrates me, and I love that game.
huh.
I love that game. And the thing is, and every time, even now, beating a boss, when I do, like, sometimes I still get the shakes, like after the fight or whatever,
Yeah.
or even if I fail, or like, but when I win, you know those dopamine rushes
Oh
that you
yeah.
hope for? I get that even playing it more than once. Like
Right.
every time I'm victorious, I love. That's why again I can't praise Sekiro enough. But it's interesting because a lot of people who have never played Dark Souls games
Hmm.
really like Sekiro. But the thing is, but people who have been playing Dark Souls games for a long time, they try to play Sekiro and they don't like Sekiro. So it's a weird thing. I would love for you to play it. As a matter of fact, I played it recently on stream.
Hmm.
As you know, I decided to be like, I don't care. Like, there's so many guys who have not finished this. I want to show it to them. I want to show them me playing it, and because again, I love it. I can't get enough of it. I admit.
Well,
I'm
I
a glutton.
funny enough, I streamed Sekiro
I remember.
before the Monster Hunter Rise was
Oh
the time.
yeah, yeah. You
I
did like a yeah. Go ahead.
when Sekiro came out, I've always loved samurais and ninjas. So
Hmm.
thematically, I was like, I want to play this game, and I bought it at launch because it was getting such good reviews. And this is when I had no experience in the Dark Souls or FromSoft universe. And the first troll that which is a hard boss, right? Um, I think I was stuck on him for 3 hours on stream, and I was getting so mad. And I was like, "How do you fight this thing?" And I've actually learned that I think Gaijin Hunter rage quit on the game because of that troll. Like, do you know the one I'm talking about?
You're talking about the big ogre, the
The
big
ogre,
one that
yeah, he's got like a big,
yeah. I know.
yeah,
And he
he's
freaking
chained.
uses he does like basically wrestling moves on you, like drop
Yeah,
kicks
he's
and
like
such. He picks you up. Oh, it's so
elbow.
good. Yeah, I actually
When
beat him on stream recently. So like I said, I just played recently.
yeah, so
And
I replayed Sekiro for the 12 Days of Heijei in
yep,
2021,
21.
and I went through that troll or that ogre so much easier. I think I beat him in maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah, like
Um,
I think it took you like 4 or 5 times. Like you pretty much lit him on fire, beat him up, and got through it. And I was like, look at you learning.
yeah, so I do want to play it. The last time I played it during those 12 days, I made it to the drunkard. Like I have two paths. The
Mhm.
drunkard, I'm walled. I couldn't overcome him, and I had just defeated the samurai general, which I was stuck on. That was my wall for the longest time, and I had to end the stream. So I'm kind of in an open area where I don't know what's next, and I'm
It's
not
funny.
stuck. Hmm.
It's funny how you talked about how like Sekiro is very linear, but the funny thing is, it's not really. Actually, there are a lot of different directions you can go in. Matter of fact, there's a boss. Like if you count the mini bosses, and let's say you're going for a certain ending, because there's like 4 endings. We're gonna call this the purification ending,
Okay.
which will give you, I think, the most bosses to fight. I think if you count mini bosses as bosses,
Hmm.
there are 51 bosses to defeat.
Oh wow!
And
I didn't
yeah,
know there
so the
was so
thing
many.
is, now there are two bosses that because I think in total there's 50. 3 or 54 bosses in the entire game, but like there's 2 that you can't get unless you do a certain ending, which ends the game quickly. Actually, it ends it like halfway through. You basically choose to say, hey, do you want to do the back half of the game, or you want to end it now? And if you go, we're going to end it now, you get to fight these 2 bosses exclusively for this ending.
Oh.
And yeah, so you have to play New Game Plus if you want to get your achievement for all the bosses. So actually, if there's a lot of achievements, you have to beat that game at least twice with a New Game Plus in order to get all the achievements. So for all you achievements hunters out there. Anyway, but the thing is, when there's a boss called Madame Butterfly. And she's supposed to be, if I had to put them on a scale, like orders to go to the bosses, she'd be like the 7th boss I would recommend you go to. When I played, I went to her as essentially like my 4th boss. And so like there was another 2 or 3 bosses I probably should have done before her. And the like first 2 times I played that game, that's how I went to her first. And then and so like recently I was playing for another time because I always like doing new games, and everyone's gonna hate this that I never play New Game Plus. I'm gonna catch so much snot for that because I always like playing a fresh playthrough.
Wonder games are easy for you.
Anyway, so the thing is, now I'm not saying I've never done New Game Plus. I'm just saying I prefer to always play it fresh, like all kinds of games. Like on that topic another time. But the thing is, but this when I was doing it on stream, I went to who should be your first boss for the first time. And usually by now, I have at least enough beads where I have a little more health, a little more posture, and if I defeat Madame Butterfly, I even have more attack. So when I went to go do it, I was past that tired. This is the night I think you were playing. You finished your Final Fantasy VII pledge. It was that night.
Very recent.
And then and it was like Tuesday. So I was like, man, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to have 1 or 2 more skills for this fight and definitely more health and attack. I've never fought him this early. I have never lost to Genobu ever. I've never even had him kill me to where I get the resurrect. Like, I always just beat him. And everyone's like, BS, go do it. And I was like, honestly, I want to end stream right now, but screw it. Let's go. So I jump in, and I was getting like my teeth kicked in. And then and right before he killed me, and everyone can see this, I'll admit it, I discovered you can actually teleport out. There's a little like teleport move you have, but if you get hit, it interrupts it. I was thinking like I'm not gonna be able to pull this off, and I teleported, and I was like, guys, I'm too tired for this. I'm gonna accept that as a loss. That's on me. But next time I go to fight him though, I'm ready to jump in, but I'm gonna fight him on my turns. You know, I'm gonna fight him 1 rested, and 2, I am gonna go get at least 2 more beads so I have a little more health. But I'm ready for him next time. You know what? Next time I think I'm just gonna jump in. I'm gonna go after him. No beads, see if I can do it. If I fail him once or twice, then yeah, I'll get the other beads. But this is the example of there are actually multiple ways to go. There is actually a boss guy who's probably way later you should fight. He's in a place called Gunfort. And I went there as like my 3rd area I went to, and I should not have. And which is good because I got a lot of XP. But for going in that direction. But there was a boss who he attacks really fast. He goes 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And like again, you know your rhythm. The thing is, the thing is, as long as you perfectly deflect, he will not break your posture. The thing is, that's the thing people don't know. You may panic because you see your posture gauge building up when you're deflecting, but if you perfectly deflect, it will never break. Wow. So having that rhythm, that da 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 dunk, wherever, and then you comes at you, you do jump on his head. And then you get da-da-da-da, dunk, boom, you've broken his posture. No matter what your attack is or anything, you've now broken his posture, and you can stab him. And I did that twice. You know how hard that boss is? I can take him out. I took him out, even though he should have been way later in the game. And because there are paths you can take, but based off your skill, it's what path you go. Now, there's the easiest path, which is the way the game intends you to take. Right. The same with Dark Souls. You can take a lot of different paths. There's an easier path and there's a harder path. Dark Souls 2, they give you 2 ways to go in the very beginning. I went the harder path by an accident first time. I was like, well, this is the path I chose. So I did that, and I'm glad I did because it has a easier boss, but harder regular mobs. And that got me good XP, which helped me get through. Plus, I can talk about how much I like Dark Souls 2, which for another time. But all I'm going to say is it gave me an opportunity to appreciate the mechanics of Dark Souls 2. The same way going in different paths with like Sekiro gives me the opportunity opportunity to learn different things that I use to apply in other fights. And that's the best thing about Miyazaki and From Software games. They let you approach the game you want.
Well,
It's wonderful.
what you just said there reminds me of my experience with an entirely different genre, the RPG, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Okay.
A reason, and some people are like, why do you do these stupid pledges? Why don't you just enjoy the games? And I said the pledges are what let me get out of my comfort zone. If I play a game offline, if I get too much resistance or it's too hard, I oftentimes just give up because I'm like, I'm not having fun anymore. However, when I'm on stream and I've created a pledge and I have that pressure, that public pressure of, is he going to give up? Like, no, I'm not going to give up. I have to go. So that's why I do those pledges. And Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of, if not my favorite game of all times.
Sure.
And I had been the story, and I had seen everything else that was available because of the achievements. So that's why when I pledged that, I said, I want to get all the achievements because I wanted to experience everything and the game had to offer. And I'm so glad I did, because hard mode is what allowed me to discover more mechanics and respect the game and its design. Yeah. And I think this is what you're saying is when you really open up a game and explore those difficult zone or explore the different paths, it's when you can see what kind of the design, what the designer is intended. And a game like in modern times, I think you have to be like, as a developer, you have to be conscious of how accessible the game is. For example, you can't make a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake too hard, because you have people that have entered the franchise from the first PlayStation game, some who have only watched Advent Children, some who have played. It's a 20-year fan base that's developed through a lot of different ways, and it's a lot of money invested. So they have to make sure it's accessible so they can sell enough copies. And I feel they did it perfectly, where normal mode gives you the story and gives you some good gameplay. But if you really want to tap into the deeper levels of the gameplay and understand the game mechanics at their full extent, that's where you got to go to hard mode. But it's not like that's explained.
We lost your voice again.
Oh no.
There we go.
It's not like that's explained when you finish the game, you feel good, you got the story, and then it's like hard mode's unlocked. And to the average player, like let's say myself, I just see that, I'm like, oh, everything's just going to be with a harder health or a higher health pool and more limitations, like you can't use items. I'm like, I'm not interested in that. But now that I've done it, I can say, oh, it's not just hard mode for sake of being hard. It's actually, it asks more from the player to use more of the game's mechanic and skill. I'm like, that I really like and appreciate. And then tying it back to Sekiro, on my second playthrough, so I told you that Ogre walled me in my very first stream. And I learned afterwards that he was weak to fire. I never figured that out in my first stream because I didn't know there were other paths. I thought you had to go through the Ogre. But by the second time I had streamed it back in the 12 days, I knew that there was the dream world or whatever it is that you could go.
Yeah, you go back in the past, right?
And then you can get the fire upgrade. Yeah, and then you can use that. Yeah, you can use that for the Ogre. And that's what I did in that playthrough. And that's why I was able to progress easier. So all that to say, in what I've seen so far of Sekiro, I agree with you. You're correct there. But I think overall, after this discussion, I still say Dark Souls is hard, but it can be easy. And that it is definitely harder than Sekiro from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I want to be very clear about that. Now, when I say things like, oh, I don't think that it's very hard, is Dark Souls, like the From Software games, hard? Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm not going to take away the fact that they are hard, because they are, but they don't need to be hard. That's the thing. They're not a flat difficulty of difficult. Like, for example, you mentioned Final Fantasy VII Remake. Imagine hard mode was the default difficulty, where you had to learn how to break, what was the thing called? You had to break the posture or something.
The stagger.
That's it. Yeah. Imagine you had to learn that mechanic, and that mechanic was important. But the thing is, but it wasn't. Like you say, you got to experience the game, and then you get to go up, and then you get to learn, hey, how would I do this if I couldn't spam healing or use items? Or, again, so you learn the mechanics that they built. And then if you take that knowledge, and you go back to normal, you destroy that game. The thing is, like that game doesn't stand a chance against you.
No. And actually, hard mode. Talking about hard games, there's some challenges at the end. Like actually, some people say, "Oh, we don't want to watch your Final Fantasy VII streams because you don't suffer." I'm like, "Have you not seen the end game challenges?" I had a guide open on my second screen that was telling me like what to do step by step to overcome these challenges, and I still like could not do it because it was just so hard. Even with the knowledge, the execution required so much precision.
Oh, no,
It was
that's
just
crazy. Why is it keep cutting out?
I don't know.
Execution. I don't know, but you're back.
Yeah, all that to say, I was saying how the final endgame bosses of Final Fantasy VII Remake, the optional stuff, is ridiculously hard. Even
They are
with
hard.
even with a guide, executing it is almost impossible.
You know, that goes to something I was talking to Nero about, is how there's a lot of people who they talk about how, oh, that's not hard or whatever. But it's a difference between watching somebody do it and executing it yourself. And that's another reason why I like Secure, because like you could watch someone play Guitar Hero. You see how it's done, all the clicks and all stuff. You're like, oh, I could do that. Yeah, whatever. But then when you go to do it yourself, it's very hard. The same thing with like, again, like I learned martial arts my entire life. Like, but if you learn like MMA, you can watch someone fight and you can see from a third person how to handle things. But then when you're in the ring, you're the way your mind's thinking and reacting, your body's moving and trying to read everything, and also you don't want to get hurt. It's the thing of like it's different when you're in it. The reason I bring that up is because here you are, you needed a third person help. You had to see things from the outside. One thing I like to do with Sekiro and such is I like to record my footage whether I succeeded or failed. And like I'll hit record because like in Xbox, for example, you can hit a thing that says, "Hey, record what happened." On PlayStation, they have a thing, "Hey, record what happened," basically. And I like to go back and see what did I do that went well or what went wrong. And sometimes having that third person perspective, looking in on it, helps you get better even. And but it's interesting because like you played Elden Ring in a way that I think is so admirable, which is you did it with no summons. And it's interesting because you played it, you made the game harder for you because you did player modulated difficulty. You chose to not have summons. The same way, like when I played Monster Hunter Rise, when Sunbreak came out, I got all the way to MR 100, all the fights with only my HR gear. I did not use any there was no G rank, it's master rank now. Any master rank gear because I wanted to make the game harder for myself. Like when you got to a certain fight where there's no spirit birds or anything against a certain monster, I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't gone to it, is that I was like, oh man, like this fight was so hard and all these things. But you like blew through it like super easy. I had to remember I made the game harder on myself because I wanted it to be harder because again, I'm good at that game. Like I said, and even still, I've never failed a single quest in Sunbreak. The thing is in Rise either. And hold on, little asterisks. As solo in multiplayer, I can't account for other people. but it's the thing of like, but I solo everything, as you know. And but the thing is like, but when it's weird because there's a very minority who's a loud minority who is like, you didn't play the game right.
Oh,
You know,
I hate that.
so like yeah, like you didn't use summons, but if you had, people would be like, "Oh, you used summons, you didn't do that fight." Like I did Millennia in 4 tries. I was done. I was Millennia. I was around 160, I think, when I fought her.
Yeah.
And I beat her on my 4th try, all because once I remember I had Bloodhound Step, which was on my weapon. I just never pressed the button. Once I used it, that was the fight. The one where I was like, "Oh yeah, Bloodhound Step. Oh, this works great." That was the one I beat her on all attempts. I got her to the second phase, my first attempt, and so forth. And but I beat her. And it's the thing about someone to be like, yeah, but you had a summon. It's true, I did. I'll say that. I had a summon with me, and that took off some of the heat. The thing is,
it takes a lot of heat off you.
Exactly. And the thing is, and it ruins a bit of that intimacy that you have with one-on-one encounters in Elden Ring. And but someone would be like, oh, you didn't play it right. You know, saying like, oh, Blue, you're too high a level. Like you didn't play it right. And so that kills me because in no other medium would ever looking for advice be like wrong. Like imagine trying to learn math, like algebra.
Right.
But like, oh, you can't learn algebra from someone else. Like you have to figure out algebra on your own. That makes no sense. And I admit From Software games are great going in blind. Like I did Elden Ring and Sekiro and stuff like that. Like I went blind and not knowing anything. And it does give you your best quote unquote experience. But sometimes, again, when you get stuck, like with Sekiro, I recommend to a lot of people, like stop being afraid to look for help. Go see how someone else did it. Because just by watching from a third person, even if you don't take his advice, just watching the fight from a third person where you're not in it, you're not in the ring trying to fight, save yourself, you will see mechanics about that, how that boss moves and such. Then you'll jump in, even if you didn't listen to any advice that guy gave, but you're now more aware how that guy fights and you know how to do it. Stuff like that. So
to your point, I actually do rewatch my fights when I'm stuck, when I'm at a wall. For Melania, for example, afterwards I was like, why did I die like so fast this time and not that time? And I rewatch it when I do my journal entry, like for the journal videos on this channel. I always rewatch the streams, not like I just scan through, and I'll go back and I was like, what am I like? What did I do wrong? Oh, she does this. Or I'll notice like, in her second phase, how she holds up her sword. I'm like, oh, she tells what her next attack is by the way she holds her sword, for example. So yeah, I do that as well. And again, on the point of the summons, I'm really happy I did that. And, I keep saying Melania's hard and all that. And I think the general consensus is Melania's hard. And I can't help but kind of sigh or facepalm a little when I see some comments pop up on my videos, and like, Melania's not hard. You just got to use, the dual swords and you summon a mimic tier. And I'm like, were you not paying attention to my pledge? I'm like, of course, if you have someone distracting the boss and having like, the aggro removed from you.
Oh, there goes your audio again.
Oh, well,
I got you back.
You lose it, but the audience will not lose it because it's being recorded on my side.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
But it's funny, you talk about Melania, but like exactly how many people had let me solo her do Melania for them? And that's an example of being like, well, I feel like you cheated yourself by letting someone else do it for you. But it's the thing of, but that's an example of modulated difficulty where I'd be like, Elden Ring, by the way, is the easiest. That is the most successful. That's the Generation 5 Monster Hunter of From Software games is Elden Ring. There are so many ways to approach Elden Ring, so many different ways you can go, so many different builds, so many things you can do. That game is to me is now, it's a very big game too, is a great game to get familiar with the From Software Souls like mechanics and then go backwards. Try out the other ones.
Well, actually, in Dark Souls 1, I ended up summoning for that double fight, Smoo?
Oh yeah, Ornstein
and Smo. Thank you, Ornstein and Smo. I was so frustrated with them, and I hated that fight. I summoned, and that's how I overcame it.
Oh man, or SNO. I have a funny story about that, real quick. I know we're tight for time, but it's the thing of when I did it on stream, I admit like I probably took me 6-7 tries to beat him, and then I summoned my boy Solaire. Solaire to come help me, and that was the one. But I was kind of like, I don't want to summon him. Like, I'm going to summon him, but I kind of feel like I got the fight down, and that was the one that we succeeded. And I was kind of mad at myself because I was kind of like, no. I even told Chad, like, I feel like I had the fight down. I understood it now. I knew what to do. I didn't need him. I cheated myself out of it, and I was a little upset at myself. And then my second playthrough, I played off stream, where again I was just going as straightforward as quickly as possible to be as quote unquote as underleveled as possible. I say that, but I mean, I can make myself more under level, but it's the thing of just playing like a normal person. But anyway, the thing is, but I get there and I said, no summons, beat him on my first try. And I felt so good because I knew the knowledge. I knew I needed to do. And I was like, I knew it. I did know that fight. Yeah. But it was one of those things of, I'm glad I went back and did it. But that fight, I know it's so funny, like you don't like that fight. I love that fight.
Well, I want to go back with a fresh perspective. Yeah.
I know, but you have such a tight schedule on what things, because right now you've got to do DMC, Devil May Cry, you've got Castlevania, and then you're jumping into Dragon's Dogma.
Well, Crisis Core is next for me.
Crisis Core, yes, for the RPG channel. Yes.
Crisis Core just started Monster Hunter 4U. Yep. And Dragon's Dogma is actually because I've also got Wild Hearts coming up next month. And Wild Hearts is probably going to replace Crisis Core. Like I'm going to do some shuffling this time. I won't be fully dedicated to one game until I finish it. I'm going to move things around because playing the same game for like 8 to 12 months takes its toll on you a little bit. And it's okay to do it once or twice, but it's not what I want to be known for. And it's not what I want to keep doing. I want that flexibility to be like, well, let's switch it up. And Wild Hearts is a game I've played the demo. I was lucky enough to be part of the media group. I really enjoy it. And that's a game I want to play at launch with everyone else. I want to experience that game with the community, which is why I'm going to switch out Crisis Core with that.
As am I. I'm going to be playing Wild Hearts blindly and fresh, only on stream as well. So that's going to be my stream only game. I'm looking forward to it, to learning stuff as much as possible, just only on stream.
Right.
And the other thing is, what were you just saying? My mind blanked.
Wild Hearts, Dragon's Dogma, switching games around.
Oh well. Anyway, so I don't know. Oh, Monster Hunter. Again, like me, I'm a Monster Hunter channel, and it's like that's how I started. And I always was gonna have Monster Hunter on there, but because of scheduling, there isn't enough time for all these games that I want to play. And like you know what I'm talking about, where people want us to play all these games. Like I bought Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and X over the holidays to play, and then I gave them a mock scheduling to show what would it take to finish this. I would be playing 1, 2, and 3 in all of 2023. I wouldn't even get a chance to touch X until 2024. And that's the thing where, like, right, there's only so much we can do. And as much as I want to see you go back to Dark Souls 1, there's just so much on your plate that if it happens, it may not be until 2024, 2025. And honestly, I think that's great. And here's why. Because the less time you have, I've seen with From Software games, they kind of also forget some things. So it kind of makes it feel like a little fresh again, but also kind of familiar, rather than just playing it back to back.
Well, I'm also at a stage, I want to go back to Monster Hunter World.
You should.
Because that I have a whole like experiencing that with all the knowledge I've gained of the franchise now. There was so much I didn't know when I played that game, to go back and actually like, okay, what if I play this game with my new perspective? What's that going to be like? So that's probably after I do For You. And is it called Generations? Monster Hunter
Generations Ultimate. Now, here's the thing though. By the time you finish For You, let's be real here. Here's the thing. Yeah, I was gonna say, let's be real. By the time you finish For You, you're gonna have, by that time, like Monster Hunter 6 will probably be coming out. Then you're gonna be playing 6, and then by the time 6 is done, you'll be playing GU finally. So like keep saying like he's gonna play it in like 2025, 2024.
Oh
like, we'll
my
see.
goodness, that's
So because 2024, I'm telling you right now, we're gonna have Monster Hunter 6, and so you're gonna be playing that during 2024, and then GU will be in 2025. So you're gonna have Monster Hunter in your life a long time. I mean, heck, people keep being like Free Unite and all these things.
I want to try that too.
Yeah, they got Frontier
and
that's
Monster Hunter 1, which I'm
and Monster Hunter 1, yes. Which, by the way,
4 hours a year.
The 20th anniversary is next year, and I'm gonna be playing Monster Hunter 1 again in 2024. I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna play on my PlayStation 2. I'm gonna stream it, and we're gonna go through the whole thing. I'm going to do it again with the claw and the controller, and everything feels terrible, but I love that game. I love how terrible it is. Talk about hard games. There we go. Talk about hard games. Go play Monster Hunter 1, everyone.
Oh my God, that is hard. Actually, I would still say Dark Souls is harder than Monster Hunter 1.
I would agree too, yes. I think Dark Souls is harder than Monster Hunter 1.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter 1 is just, it's painful, but Dark Souls is... Here's my final thoughts. I'm going to go on Dark Souls as we're up on time. Is I want to talk about the design of the fight. So we're talking about Melania, for example. I want to talk about a boss that no one sees, and I'll explain what I mean. It shows that how much love and care that From Software, especially Miyazaki, I have a little asterisk there because a lot of people are like, Dark Souls 2 is a Miyazaki. Yeah, I know. Is Pinwheel from the first game. People are like, Pinwheel? Pinwheel sucks. I'd be like, now hear me out. Because everyone thinks Pinwheel sucks because he's dead so quickly. Because by the time you get to him, you just run up, you hit him like 4 times, he's done. No one sees his mechanics. No one sees his fire moves. He has illusions, teleports. I want to see, and this is the thing that makes me sad, is that imagine if, again, the way that Sekiro is, where everyone's kind of like imagine like when you play... Everyone's at the same level, essentially. So you get to fully experience a fight. That would be a fight that I think that if it had more time, people would appreciate said fight. There was a fight I did in Dark Souls 2 where supposedly, like, again, he was super easy. And he looked like Jabba the Hutt. And when I beat him, apparently he has like things like poison, and he can like corrosive your weapons and armor or something so they break. And like there's like things above him that you can drop down like these poison things and he'll eat them and get poisoned. But I didn't see that. No one ever sees them because just like Pinwheel, he's dead so quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, that's a shame because there is so much great design in all these fights, but because we just run through them because it's not on equal playing field, no one gets to see them.
That gives me the idea these games should really have, maybe after you beat the game, almost like a boss room where you can experience every boss with, and this would be tricky, but it would have to be like almost like the arena quest in Monster Hunter. You're locked in with like
with a certain gear and level and stuff like that. Yeah.
With maybe the ability to switch your weapons, but somehow it's a base level where you can't steamroll and you really have to learn the moves of the boss and kind of make it like an optional side. Hey, can you do the boss arena and really kill the bosses without steamrolling them?
Right. Or cheesing them because you don't have that available to you.
That would be, I think that should be a huge conversation in the gaming industry or gaming community.
I'm sure someone could make a mod out of that and they should.
Absolutely. So that's a good point to end on. If anybody here is a mod or knows how to do this, if we could get a boss room for these Soulsborne games where it's like all the stats are kind of, I would say fair. I don't know what fair is if it means level 100, level 1. I feel level 1's maybe too
people
low.
would know it more than we do. We're not experienced enough to know the answer.
But the devs, if you're looking for like a DLC or added content, if the devs of FromSoft ever listen to this podcast, maybe one day, please have a boss room. All right. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there. What you want to share with the audience, kind of what to expect going forward from this podcast? Frequency, topics.
Sure. Okay, so like I said, well, one thing is we just talked about the difficulty of From Software games. They are hard, but they have that beautiful modulated difficulty where they don't have to be as hard as you think. Again, people, don't be afraid if you've never played a From Software game. It may not be for everyone because not every game's for everyone. If you don't like racing games, they'll play racing game. But don't be as afraid. There are ways to play and experience the game. However you play it, as long as you're having fun, who cares? So that's my final thoughts on all that. And so whether you guys want to play it harder, easier, whatever, as long as you're having fun, good on you.
And don't poo on someone else's fun.
Yeah. Anyway, so but moving forward, based off that conversation, leave comments. We want to read them, and we're going to bring it up a little bit on the next time, and then we're going to move on to our next topic. And our next topic, depending on if we do this before or after Wild Hearts, we're going to be talking about Wild Hearts. Yeah. So it might be until the end next month. But if we talk prior, there is a bit of a Monster Hunter conversation that you and I are going to have. Okay. You kind of touched on it, which is talking about a little bit of what is not only your favorite Monster Hunter, because you're a fiver, okay? Yeah. So people think that just because your first game is your favorite one, that's not true. Every Monster Hunter brings something special to the table, and we're going to be talking about a bit of that because what your favorite Monster Hunter is may not be your first. And then, heck, you've gone backwards, and you're starting to see if you went backwards. When you went to 3, you've seen 1 a bit. Yeah. Again, you're in for a treat, Jay. Well, we'll see that next time on the next podcast,
which will be we'll guarantee 1 a month.
At least, yeah.
At least 1 a month. That is our minimum commitment, and we will see where we go from here. But otherwise, we'll see you on the next episode or wherever we may be. And until next time, as I always say, keep it classy. Or as Blue says,
enjoy the hunting life. Gee.
Have a good one.
I'll see you. Mm-hmm.